They stopped her in the middle of the crowd. "Random checks," they said, but the looks and the words were anything but random. They scrutinized, they disparaged, they made prejudicial insinuations about her skin color, her dress, her source of wealth. When she dared to resist, to demand respect, they responded with outright slander. And then, to her own shock and the curious eyes of the crowd, those young hands were locked in cold handcuffs, right at her hometown airport, treated like a criminal just because of her appearance. They gleefully took her into the security room, continued the intimidation, prepared for the final step, probably blackmail. They were completely unaware, completely blind to the fact that they had just made the most terrible mistake of their career, of their lives. Because the girl they just framed and handcuffed was not just a passenger. She had a powerful last name. Listen to the whole story to find out what happens when the truth is revealed. Port City International Airport, on a Tuesday afternoon in mid-June, was bustling and bustling, living up to its reputation as an important trade hub. The bright Southern California sunlight streamed through the terminal's giant glass windows, casting long streaks of light on the polished marble floors. People from all over the world, pulling colorful suitcases and speaking a variety of languages, created a noisy but vibrant symphony of sound. The loudspeakers continuously updated flight information in standard voices, the clicking of suitcase wheels, laughter, the sound of children playing, all blended together to create a characteristic atmosphere of movement and waiting. In the crowd, Maya Washington stood out with her youthful, dynamic appearance and unique fashion style. At the age of 23, she had just finished a long trip in Europe, a gift to herself after graduating with honors from university with a major in art history. She stepped out of the jetway connecting to the flight from Paris, joining the stream of passengers moving towards the domestic security control area and baggage claim. Maya possesses a radiant, healthy beauty typical of African Americans with smooth, honey-brown skin, big, round, intelligent black eyes, and a bright smile that is always on her lips. Her thick black hair is tied up high, full of personality. Although she is a bit tired after the long flight, her eyes still shine with excitement and joy at being about to return home, to her beloved Port City. She wears a comfortable yet fashionable outfit, high-waisted moss-green silk jogger pants, a stylish shirt from a high-end brand with sharp tailoring, and colorful limited-edition Air Jordan sneakers. She wears a purple MCM leather backpack over one shoulder, looking both dynamic and stylish. She is wearing white wireless headphones, gently dancing to the vibrant R&B music, completely immersed in her own world. She looked around, her eyes quickly searching for signs for the exit to the baggage claim area. The trip to Europe had been wonderful, filled with interesting art and culture experiences, but she also missed home, her parents, and her close friends in Port City. She just wanted to quickly grab her large suitcase full of souvenirs and rush out of this noisy airport. The crowded and somewhat chaotic international airport sometimes made her feel a little suffocated, but she tried to stay patient, blending in with the slowly moving flow of people. However, Maya's outstanding appearance, fashionable and somewhat different dressing style from the majority, unintentionally attracted unwanted attention from two figures in police uniforms who were standing on monitoring duty in a hidden corner nearby. Officer Gary Peterson, a white man in his 40s with short, crew-cut gray hair, a red face lined with frowns, and a beer belly visible under his uniform, narrowed his gray-green eyes when he saw Maya. His usual bored, disgruntled expression suddenly took on a strange light, curiosity mixed with prejudice. He nudged the younger officer standing next to him in the ribs. "Look at that girl, Ben," Peterson muttered, his voice hoarse with annoyance. "See? A black girl dressed like a stage performer. All those designer shoes and backpacks. Where did she get all that money for such a young girl?" Officer Ben Carter, about 28, with short blonde hair and a face that was still young but trying to look mature, looked in the direction Peterson was pointing. At first, he probably just noticed a young, pretty, and somewhat strikingly dressed girl, but the prejudiced words of his experienced senior quickly penetrated his young mind. "Yes, she looks different, sir," Carter replied, trying to sound sympathetic. "Not quite like the locals." "What's the difference?" Peterson snapped. "I know this type well. One is the daughter of a family that sells illegal goods, has no place to hide dirty money. Two is the type of bad girl who is supported by some rich guy, soccer player, or rapper, gives her money to spend lavishly. She looks innocent on the outside, but she definitely has problems on the inside. This type is likely to carry drugs or large amounts of cash." He made baseless assumptions based entirely on racial and physical prejudice. Carter swallowed, his eyes starting to change, from curiosity to suspicion and a bit of ambiguous excitement. "So, what do we do, boss?" "What?" Peterson sneered, a wicked smile. "Let's test her out a bit. See if this princess is as clean as she looks. Maybe we can get a good deal or at least make her a little more sensible." He glanced at Carter. "Prepare yourself. I'll give you the signal." Carter, though he might have had a momentary hesitation about picking a fight with a passenger who had just disembarked, was quickly overcome by his inexperience, his desire for Peterson's approval, and his underlying prejudice. "Yes, sir," he replied, trying to sound tough and ready. The two officers began to move from their hiding spot, choosing a moment when Maya had just passed a less crowded connecting corridor, slightly separated from the main flow of passengers. They moved closer, preparing to carry out the planned stop and harassment. Maya Washington, still absorbed in the music in her headphones and the joy of being home, was completely unaware that she was about to become the victim of a blatant abuse of power and racism, right in the airport of the city her father was the head of. Her mistaken preconception had put her in unnecessary danger. As Maya turned into the hallway leading to the baggage claim area, where the crowd was a little lighter, two police officers, Peterson and Carter, suddenly stepped out from a hidden corner and blocked her way. Their sudden and somewhat aggressive action startled Maya, who reflexively took a step back and hastily removed her wireless headphones from her ears. "Hey, girl," Officer Peterson spoke first, his tone deliberately casual and disrespectful, completely unlike how a police officer should address a citizen. "Where are you going looking around in such a hurry? Stop here for a moment, the police want to ask you a few questions." Maya frowned, looking at the two uniformed men before her with confusion and slight discomfort. "How are you?" "What is it, officers? I'm on my way to get my luggage." She tried to keep her tone polite, even though she found their approach strange and uncomfortable. "Luggage?" Officer Carter interjected, smirking, his eyes sweeping over Maya's outfit and designer backpack. "Why do you seem so hasty? Are you afraid someone will find out what's hidden in your luggage?" He began with innuendos, deliberately sowing suspicion. "What are you talking about?" Maya was starting to get annoyed. "I have nothing to fear. Please get out of my way." "Calm down, girl," Peterson said, holding up a hand as if to stop her. "What's the big deal? The police just want to ask a few questions. Show me your ID," he demanded imperiously. Despite her discomfort, Maya tried to control herself. She rummaged through her backpack, pulled out her brand-new California driver's license, where she had attended college, and handed it to Peterson. He took it, flipped it over, examining it deliberately, slowly, and with undue care. "Maya Washington," Peterson said the name aloud, then looked up at her with a questioning gaze. "Washington? Sounds familiar. Same name as our mayor." He said it casually, but his eyes were full of scrutiny. "You're from California? Why are you back here? By the way, you're so young. Where did you get the money to dress so stylishly and travel by plane? What do your parents do to be so rich?" Peterson's invasive and prejudicial questions were too much for Maya to bear. "You have no right to ask me those questions," she protested, her voice rising with anger. "What I wear and how I move is none of your business. You are insulting and harassing me. I have done nothing wrong." "Oh, you're yelling for doing nothing wrong?" Carter interjected, his tone challenging. "You look pretty, but your attitude is so bad. This can be a problem." "What is the problem?" Maya asked, not backing down. "Explain yourself." Maya's strong resistance and fearless attitude only made Peterson more angry. This old cop had a deep prejudice against young black people, especially those who appeared confident and unreasonable. He decided to teach this girl a lesson for life, at the same time finding an excuse to make things more difficult for her, maybe to search her luggage or worse. "The point is," Peterson growled, his face red, "your demeanor is very suspicious. You seem nervous, restless. You're dressed differently. We suspect you may be in possession or transporting illegal substances. This airport has recently been detecting sophisticated drug trafficking cases by young people like you, concealed on their person or in their luggage. This was a completely blatant slander, fabricated on the spot, without any specific evidence or signs." "What? Drugs?" Maya gasped in surprise, then immediately turned to pure indignation. "Are you crazy? How dare you slander me like that? Do you have any proof?" "We'll find the evidence," Peterson smirked wickedly. "But first, because of your resistance and suspicion of drug possession, you'll be coming with us to the security room for questioning." He turned to Carter, who was waiting for orders. "Ben, handcuff her. Resisting a police officer and suspicion of a crime." "Yes, sir," Carter replied curtly, pulling a pair of shiny handcuffs out of his holster quickly, as if he had been waiting for this order. "No, you can't do this!" Maya screamed, trying to back away. She couldn't believe this was happening to her. Being falsely accused of drug possession and arrested at the airport, it was so absurd and unfair. "I'm going to sue you. You're going to pay for this. My dad won't let you off." In her panic and anger, she blurted out her father's name. But that threat, instead of discouraging Peterson and Carter, only made them more ecstatic. "Your dad?" Peterson laughed. "Who the hell is your dad? Some mob boss? Some lowly lawyer? Don't threaten us. We are the law here." They never considered that Maya's words might be true. To them, she was just a bratty black girl trying to use empty words to escape. Ignoring Maya's protests and feeble struggles, Peterson and Carter rushed in together, using their strength to subdue her. Carter quickly twisted Maya's arms behind her back and tightened the cold metal cuffs around her wrists. Maya burst into tears of pain, humiliation, and fear. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She never thought she would be in such a terrible situation, being treated like a criminal, being blatantly falsely accused, right in her hometown. Passers-by stopped to look with curious, pitying eyes. Some shook their heads in dismay. A few raised their phones to record the scene. But no one dared to intervene or help. The silence of the crowd made Maya feel more alone and helpless than ever. "Go! Take me to the security room!" Peterson shouted, his voice full of triumph. He pushed Maya hard in the back, forcing her to walk. Carter grabbed her arm and dragged her toward the restricted area. They felt extremely satisfied that they had subdued this stubborn girl and would soon have the opportunity to deal with her in a private room where they could continue their intimidation and possibly blackmail. Little did they know that this act of abuse and stupidity was about to end both their careers. The heavy metal door of Security Room 3 slammed shut behind Maya, trapping her in a cold, stuffy, oppressive space. The small, windowless room was lit only by a dim, white fluorescent light, adding to the sense of confinement and fear. Officer Peterson plopped down in the chair across from Maya, propping his feet up on the desk, his face full of smugness. Officer Carter leaned against the wall next to the door, arms crossed, his eyes full of mockery as he looked at Maya. "See, little girl?" Peterson began his psychological torture. "Who said you were being unreasonable? This is what you get for resisting the police. Now sit here and think about your actions." He continued his threatening song, his tone condescending. "You know, with this charge of suspected drug possession and resisting a law enforcement officer, you could face a prison sentence. Not to mention having it recorded in your criminal record, it will be difficult to find a job or go anywhere in the future. Especially for someone seemingly like you probably have some reputation or family status to maintain, right?" He winked meaningfully. Maya sat silently on the hard plastic chair, her hands still painfully cuffed behind her back. The tears had stopped falling, but fear and anger were still evident in her dark eyes. She tried to take deep breaths, to calm herself. She knew that panicking at this point would not help. She needed to think, to find a way out of this situation. "So what now?" Carter interjected, his tone teasing. "What do you think? Want to cooperate to make things easier?" "Cooperate?" Maya asked again, her voice hoarse. "Yes, cooperate," Peterson said, leaning forward. "Tell us where you've hidden the goods, or there's another way to make things easier." He began to move into the blackmail he'd been planning. "We don't want to make things difficult for a pretty young lady like you. Consider this a misunderstanding, a little lesson. If you'd be more considerate—" "You want money, right?" Maya interrupted, looking Peterson straight in the eye. She knew what they were up to. Peterson sneered. "Smart. It's easier to talk to someone who knows." He rubbed his chin. "It's not much. A little fee for us to let it go, cancel the report, and let you go as if nothing happened. Consider it compensation for our hard work." "How much?" Maya asked again, trying to keep her voice calm despite her pounding heart. "Given your circumstances," Peterson glanced at Maya's MCM backpack, "I think $5,000 is reasonable. Cash, now." $5,000. Not a small amount for a recent graduate like Maya. But what made her even more indignant was the brazenness of these two men. They dared to frame her, arrest her, and now blackmail her so openly. "I don't have that much cash," Maya said honestly, "and I'm not going to pay you for a crime I didn't commit." "Oh, still stubborn?" Peterson growled, his patience starting to wear thin. "Then don't blame us for not showing mercy. We'll follow procedure. Search your entire body, send you for a urine test. Make sure you stay here for at least the rest of the night." In that moment, Maya's initial fear gave way to determination. She couldn't let these two continue. She had to find a way to contact someone who could help her, someone who could expose them for what they were. I want to make a phone call," she said, her voice trembling but determined. "It's my right to be arrested." Peterson and Carter looked at each other, then burst out laughing. "Call?" Peterson scoffed. "Fine. Call. Call her dad? Or some rich boyfriend to pay the ransom?" He still completely ignored her, not thinking that the call could pose any danger to them. He pointed to the old landline on the table. "Use this. Put it on speakerphone so we can hear you." Maya took a deep breath. Her hands were shaking, but she dialed the number she knew by heart, the personal cell phone number of her father, Mayor Thomas Washington. She put it on speakerphone, as they requested. The phone rang a few times before someone picked up. A familiar, deep, authoritative voice said, "Hello? Dad? It's me, Maya." Maya's voice choked up, tears welling up again. "Maya? Honey, you landed? Is everything okay?" Mayor Washington's voice was full of affection and concern. I'm not okay, Dad," Maya sobbed. "I'm in some big trouble at the airport. I'm being held in security. There are 2 cops. They said I had drugs. They handcuffed me." "What?" Mayor Washington's tone suddenly changed from fondness to anger and disbelief. His shout was so loud it shook the phone's speaker. "Detained at the airport? Handcuffed? Falsely accused of drug possession? Who? Who would do this to my daughter?" Peterson and Carter, who were sitting across from each other laughing, lost their smiles at this. "Dad? My daughter?" that authoritative voice. They began to sense that something was wrong. "Calm down, Maya. Listen to me." The mayor's voice was sharp, trying to calm his daughter but unable to hide his terrible anger. "Give the phone to whichever officer is there with you. Now! Tell him the mayor wants to talk to you." Peterson and Carter's ears pricked up. The mayor? Thomas Washington? The mayor's daughter? They looked at each other, their faces changing from red to white as paper in an instant. They couldn't believe their ears. They had just arrested, insulted, slandered, and attempted to blackmail the daughter of the most powerful man in Port City. Maya shakily held the receiver toward Peterson. "Dad, my dad wants to talk to you." Peterson shook his head and picked up the receiver. "Hello? Excuse me? Who is this?" His voice was hoarse with fear. "I am Mayor Thomas Washington." The mayor's voice roared through the phone like thunder in a clear sky. "Who the fuck are you? Why are you treating my daughter like this? Do you know what you've just done? Huh?" Bang! Peterson dropped the phone on the floor. He stood up, his face drained of color and his whole body shaking. He turned to Carter, who was standing like a statue, his mouth open, his eyes wide with horror. They were done for. Really done for. At that moment, the door to the security room burst open. Captain Eva Rostova, the commander of the airport police department, rushed into the room, her face a mixture of anger and disbelief. She had just received a series of urgent calls from the mayor's office and the police department directorate. "Peterson! Carter! You two!" Before she could finish her sentence, the phone in the room rang loudly again. The two police officers' walkie-talkies also rang continuously, with orders to preserve the scene and wait for superiors to handle the situation. The air in the room was thick with tension and fear. Captain Rostova rushed to Maya. "Miss Washington, are you okay? Oh my God, I'm so sorry about this." She gestured to Carter. "Get her out of the handcuffs, hurry!" Carter fumbled and trembled as he pulled out the key. It took him a moment to unlock the handcuffs that were tightly gripping Maya's wrists. When she was free, Maya hugged her sore wrist and leaned back against Captain Rostova. The commander turned to look at Peterson and Carter with bullet-shaped eyes. The two criminals, now completely collapsed. They no longer had any dignity. Peterson suddenly knelt on the floor, clasped his hands, and begged Maya. "Miss Washington, please forgive me. We didn't know. We really didn't know you were the mayor's daughter. We were wrong. We beg you." Carter saw this and quickly knelt down, tears and snot streaming down his face. "Please, please help tell the mayor. We were just momentarily confused. Please don't destroy us. We have wives, children, families." The arrogant, racist, greedy, and cruel faces from earlier had completely disappeared. Only two cowards, pathetic, were left, trying to cling to a fragile hope before the wrath of power and the inevitable punishment of justice. Their pitiful pleas echoed in the cold security room, but it was too late. Their fatal mistake had been sealed. In the face of Officer Peterson and Officer Carter's pitiful pleading and crocodile tears, Maya Washington felt only contempt and disgust. The initial fear had dissipated, replaced by hurt and simmering anger. She did not say a word in response to their pleas, only coldly turned away, her eyes fixed on Captain Rostova as if demanding immediate justice. Captain Rostova understood the gravity of the situation and her responsibility. She could not tolerate such blatant abuse of power, racism, and slander, especially when the victim was the daughter of the mayor of the city. "Stand up!" she ordered Peterson and Carter in a stern voice. "Your behavior is unacceptable and has disgraced the entire Port City police force. I hereby announce your immediate suspension. Surrender your badges, weapons, and badges." Under Captain Rostova's stern gaze and Maya's fearful silence, Peterson and Carter stood up, trembling as they removed the symbols of power they no longer deserved. Any hope of forgiveness had vanished. Captain Rostova then personally escorted Maya Washington out of the security area, ensuring that she was treated with the utmost respect and safety. And the mayor's personal security personnel were also quickly on hand to escort Maya home. The incident was reported directly to the police department directorate and the mayor's office. A real storm was about to hit the Port City Police Department. The internal and criminal investigations were conducted at breakneck speed, under close supervision from the highest levels. Maya Washington's detailed and complete testimony was the most important piece of evidence. In addition, security camera footage at the airport, although not capturing the entire scene in the closed room, was enough to clearly show Peterson and Carter blocking the road, handcuffing and violently escorting Maya. Testimonies from other passengers and airport staff further strengthened the case file. Faced with overwhelming evidence and pressure from all sides, Peterson and Carter had no choice but to deny their crimes. They were charged with a series of crimes: unlawful detention, slander, harassment of citizens by abuse of power, and violation of civil rights. Racial motive was determined to be the main factor leading to the original crime. The incident caused a stir in Port City. Many people expressed outrage at the actions of the two police officers and expressed concern about abuse of power and discrimination in the public service. Civil rights organizations spoke out to demand stronger police reforms. Under pressure from public opinion and the seriousness of the case, the Port City Police Department quickly decided to permanently fire Gary Peterson and Ben Carter. At the subsequent trial, both men were no longer stubborn. They sincerely admitted their guilt, expressed remorse, and begged for leniency from the law. However, the court took into account the seriousness of the conduct, the abuse of public trust, and, in particular, the racial motive. The final sentence imposed was 3 years' imprisonment for each defendant. This may be considered by some to be insufficient in light of the harm they had caused, but it was sufficient to send a message that wrongdoing will be punished, and that no one, not even the police, is above the law. 3 years may not seem like a long time, but it was enough to completely destroy the lives and futures of two people who were driven by prejudice and greed. The heartbreaking incident at the airport left a deep psychological scar on Maya Washington. She experienced fear, humiliation, and injustice in the place she considered home. However, her strong character and the support of her family and friends helped her overcome it. Instead of retreating into herself, this incident only motivated Maya to become more concerned about social issues. She began to actively participate in community activities, speaking out against racism, advocating for criminal justice reform policies, and increasing police accountability. The traumatic experience transformed her from an art student into a passionate young social activist. For the Port City Police Department and the Peterson and Carter cases, they were a costly lesson, a wake-up call that could not be ignored. They exposed gaps in management, oversight, and ethics training for police officers. They forced leadership to take a more serious look at the racism and abuse of power that still existed within the force. Many reforms were proposed and implemented in the aftermath, aimed at rebuilding community trust and ensuring that similar incidents would never happen again. The story of the mayor's daughter being arrested and vilified by racist police at the airport has become a bitter reminder that even those with status and connections are not completely immune to injustice and prejudice. It raises a larger question for society. If the mayor's daughter can be treated like this, what will happen to ordinary people, especially those from vulnerable minority communities, when they are unfortunate enough to fall into the hands of those who abuse power? The fight for justice and equality is still long and requires everyone's cooperation. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you like this content, please click like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next meaningful stories, because tomorrow we will have another meaningful story for you.